For a long time, I believed that living on the edge was the destiny of some people, that scarcity was an unchangeable reality. But I learned that poverty does not begin in the wallet, it begins in the mind. When the mind is set free, life itself begins to change. Many people spend their entire lives working hard, waking up early, sacrificing time with their families, and giving up dreams. Yet they remain trapped in scarcity, as if running on a treadmill that leads nowhere. And this does not happen because of lack of effort, but because of an invisible prison built inside the mind. For a long time, I observed this reality closely and lived within it myself, believing that perhaps some people were simply born to live on the edge, always worried, always dependent on the next paycheck just to breathe. The greatest mistake a person can make is to confuse humility with conformity and faith with passive acceptance of misery. History shows us that the people of Israel left Egypt physically, but took decades to enter the Promised Land because slavery was still alive within them, shaping their thoughts, words, and reactions. They were no longer in chains, yet they still thought like slaves, and because of that, they wandered in circles in the desert. In the same way, today millions of people are not starving, they have jobs and income, yet they live dominated by constant fear of lack, financial anxiety, and the feeling that it is never enough. They normalize phrases like, "Money is hard to earn," "This is not for me," "Those who are born poor die poor," without realizing that these words function as internal commands that the mind faithfully obeys. The human mind sets limits long before reality imposes them, and when someone internally accepts that they will never prosper, they begin to make decisions aligned with that belief. They work hard but do not plan. They earn but do not manage. They dream but do not position themselves. They complain but do not change. Thus the cycle repeats month after month, year after year. Modern slavery is not made of iron chains, but of mental patterns fed daily by fear, lack of vision, and the repetition of family stories of scarcity. The most dangerous thing is not having little, but believing that this is all life can offer. When someone begins to see survival as normal, they silently abandon the right to build something greater. People trapped in this mindset may even receive opportunities, but they fail to recognize them because a mind trained in scarcity distrusts growth and fears change. True freedom begins when a person recognizes they are imprisoned within, because until that prison is identified, it cannot be broken. No amount of money can free someone whose mind remains enslaved, and that is why so many people earn more and still live on the edge. Real transformation does not begin in the wallet. It begins in awareness, and only when the mind is renewed does life begin to respond differently. Everything that manifests in a person's life first passed through the mind, because the mind functions as the true command center of choices, actions, and the way one interprets reality. It is not money that defines a person's destiny, but how that person thinks about it. For a long time, I noticed that many people try to change only the external aspects of life. They change jobs, make promises at the beginning of every month, swear that this time it will work, but they continue carrying the same old beliefs, and therefore the results repeat themselves. Life does not respond to isolated effort, it responds to identity. When someone sees themselves as unworthy of prosperity, they unconsciously reject opportunities, feel uncomfortable with growth, and normalize losses as if they were inevitable. The mind accepts what is repeated with emotion and consistency, and that is why words are not just sounds, they are internal commands. When someone repeatedly says they never have money, that everything is hard, that it is always lacking, the mind begins to seek evidence to confirm that narrative, and life ends up obeying. This is not magical thinking, but internal coherence. The mind seeks alignment between what it believes and what it experiences. That is why there are people who earn little and prosper, while others earn much and live on the edge, because the issue was never the amount coming in, but how it is received, managed, and directed. Scarcity is not in the salary. It is in the mindset that consumes everything without purpose. When the mind operates in survival mode, it thinks only about the present moment, immediate relief, and loses the ability to plan, build, and invest in the future. This mindset creates constant urgency, anxiety, and impulsive decisions. When the mind is renewed, however, money is seen as a tool, not as an emotional source of security. This shift is profound because it removes the weight from money and places responsibility on awareness. True faith teaches that we are not defined by what we have today, but by what we are becoming. A mind aligned with purpose begins to act differently, speak differently, and react differently to the same circumstances. Where there was fear, clarity begins to arise. Where there was disorganization, direction is born. Where there was repetition of mistakes, learning emerges. Mental transformation does not happen overnight, but is built daily through discipline, observation of one's own thoughts, and the conscious decision to no longer accept beliefs that limit growth. When the mind changes, life has no choice but to follow, because all external reality is merely a delayed reflection of the inner world. Faith that truly transforms a person's life never remains only in words or intentions. It inevitably manifests in concrete attitudes, conscious choices, and changes in behavior. Many people say they believe in better days, prosperity, and freedom, yet they continue living as if they were alone in the world, reacting to fear, panicking at any instability, and waiting for everything to change without changing themselves first. True faith does not eliminate challenges, but it completely changes one's posture toward them. When someone truly believes, they begin to organize their time, priorities, and decisions better, because they understand that every choice carries consequences. Faith that does not generate action becomes comfortable speech, incapable of producing real results. Those who believe move even when they do not have all visible guarantees. This movement breaks paralysis and takes the mind out of survival mode, placing it into construction mode. The great problem for many people is not lack of resources but lack of direction. They live putting out daily fires, resolving urgencies, but never build anything lasting because they are always reacting and never planning. Active faith teaches that it is not enough to pray for change if habits remain the same. Praying for prosperity while remaining disorganized is internal incoherence. Praying for growth while remaining trapped by fear of trying is contradiction. Genuine faith demands alignment between what is believed and what is done. When this alignment occurs, the mind strengthens, behavior adjusts, and results begin to appear gradually but consistently. The people who wandered in the desert did not perish due to lack of provision, but due to lack of vision. They had enough to survive, but could not see beyond the present moment, and therefore murmured, doubted, and longed for the past. Many people today live the same way, trapped in the immediate, afraid of the future, and nostalgic for a past that was also limited. Active faith teaches us to look forward, even when the path is not yet clear. It teaches that every small conscious step builds a new reality over time. Those who develop this kind of faith begin to act with responsibility, discipline, and courage, understanding that prosperity does not happen by chance, but as the result of repeated decisions aligned with purpose. Faith in action transforms the way a person works, relates, manages resources, and recognizes opportunities. It does not deny current reality, but refuses to accept it as final. True prosperity never arises from selfishness or the desperate pursuit of personal gain. It naturally emerges when someone understands that their life has value insofar as it generates value for others. Throughout my journey, it became clear that those who build stability and lasting abundance are those who solve problems, serve with excellence, and position themselves as instruments of transformation in their environment. Wealth is not merely the accumulation of money, it is the expansion of impact. When someone lives only trying to survive, their focus narrows, their vision becomes limited, and their decisions turn defensive. But when that person changes the internal question from "how will I pay my bills" to "how can I be useful?", something profound begins to happen. Serving does not require great resources, it requires responsibility, commitment, and the willingness to do things well even when no one is watching. Those who work with excellence, even in simple roles, build character, reputation, and preparation for greater opportunities. Abundance does not respond to desperation, it responds to value generated. People who stand out are not necessarily the most talented, but those most committed to delivering more than expected. A scarcity mindset always asks what it will gain in return, while a prosperous mindset asks how it can contribute. This shift in focus completely transforms how a person positions themselves in the world. Generosity does not begin in the wallet, it begins in the heart. And even those with little always have something to offer, whether time, attention, skill, or knowledge. Those who plant value reap opportunities, because the world responds to those who become necessary. Prosperity is not about holding on, but about allowing what flows through you to generate life in others. When someone understands that serving does not diminish but expands, they begin to act with freedom, without fear of lack, without excessive attachment, without a loss mentality. This positioning creates a healthy flow where money ceases to be the center and becomes a consequence. Those who serve with purpose attract trust, and where there is trust, doors open. Sustainable prosperity is born when someone decides to be relevant, not just well paid. Those who build legacy do not live only for themselves, they live for something greater, and this sense of mission creates discipline, consistency, and courage to endure difficult seasons without abandoning the path. Serving with excellence in hard times is one of the greatest signs of spiritual and mental maturity, because it shows that motivation is not only in immediate return, but in the purpose guiding every action. Every real transformation begins at the moment someone makes a clear and non-negotiable internal decision, a decision that does not depend on external circumstances, but on awareness. For a long time, many people wait for something outside to change before changing within, but true transformation always happens in the opposite direction. The day someone decides they will no longer accept living trapped in cycles of scarcity is the day freedom begins to become possible. This decision is not emotional, it is rational, spiritual, and practical. It redefines limits, reorganizes priorities, and changes the way a person sees themselves. Those who decide to break cycles begin to speak differently, act differently, and react differently to the same difficulties that once seemed insurmountable. Prosperity does not arise instantly, but is built consistently when there is alignment between mind, faith, and action. Many people try to change, but give up because they want quick results without deep transformation. And when they do not see immediate effects, they return to old habits. Those who truly decide understand that growth is a process, not an event. Identity must be strengthened daily so that scarcity loses its place. Declaring who you are and where you are going is not superstition, it is mental discipline. The mind needs clear direction to avoid automatically returning to old patterns. When someone affirms daily that they were not born to merely survive, but to build, the mind begins to seek coherence with that vision and adjusts behaviors, choices, and reactions. This does not mean denying difficulties, but refusing to allow them to define the future. The decision to live with faith, responsibility, and purpose breaks inherited patterns, shatters limiting family beliefs, and creates a new trajectory. Those who make this decision begin to treat money as a tool, not as a source of identity, and this completely changes their relationship with it. Anxiety decreases, planning increases, and life ceases to be a sequence of urgencies and becomes a conscious path. Prosperity is not luck. It is not the privilege of a few. It is the consequence of a free mind that has assumed responsibility for its own destiny. When someone decides to learn, serve, act, and trust, they build a solid foundation that withstands time and crisis. This decision also brings peace, because the person stops living hostage to fear and begins living guided by purpose. Scarcity loses strength when it no longer finds shelter in the mind. The cycle is broken when identity changes. And from that point on, even if challenges remain, the direction is already set. Those who truly decide do not turn back at the first difficulty, because they understand they are not merely seeking money, they are building a new way of life. This is the decision that changes everything. The decision to no longer accept a limited life when a life of purpose, impact, and conscious abundance is truly possible.